Saving Grace, Episode 4, The Evidence File. In Episode 3, I showed you how the money moved and who moved it. The gift cards, the wire transfers, the intermediaries, the banks that were supposed to stop it and didn't. And before I show you the documents they built to keep Grace believing, I want to take a moment to address something. Because the question I keep hearing is, how could anyone fall for this? If you're having a hard time believing this happens to anyone at all, it may be that you're seeing things from where you sit. You're using your defenses, your skepticism, your life experience, and basking in the comfort of a stable, loving relationship. But that's not the pool these scammers pull from. Think about Jonestown. Nobody signed up to drink the Kool-Aid. They signed up for community, for belonging, for something that felt meaningful. The Kool-Aid came later, as the conditioning was complete. Dating sites offer the promise of love and romance. Predators use that promise as leverage, slowly pulling each victim into a private world customized just for them. It's a world that neither family nor friends can see into. Without understanding what is happening, the victim becomes trapped by their own emotions. This isn't just a con artist trick. This is cult-level conditioning. So why should you care? I had a teacher in high school who used to say, "That which does not affect me directly affects me indirectly." It's damaging enough that billions of dollars are being sucked out of our economy each year, but the real cost isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in human souls. People get destroyed. Their lives get destroyed. Grace isn't just a victim. She's a preview of coming attractions. At some point, Grace started asking questions. Not just because some of Charles' claims were eyebrow-raising, but because she loved him and wanted to understand. Why can't you come home? Why do you need so much money? Is this a scam? And every time Grace asked a question, an answer appeared. Not a real answer, a Charles answer, a Charles document created just for her. First came the contract, a non-compete dressed up to look like a real business document. It was supposed to prove Charles was a real businessman with a job to do in South Africa. Grace saw it, and she saw what she wanted to see. Looked good to her. I saw it long after the fact, and it was a joke. Not only was it a boilerplate non-compete agreement, it wasn't a contract, it was sloppy. It was not the mark of a multinational oil corporation. Then at the end of 2024 came the check, a $485,000 check from Caltex made out to Charles G. Builders. I could tell at first glance it was phony, but to Grace, who was looking for reasons to trust in him, she took it as a promise. A promise that the moment he got home, he'd cash that check and every dollar she had sent would come back to her. But in reality, the check was just a prop. It was a setup for the next round of money sucking. As long as Grace felt comfortable that Charles' funds were in place, in order to hasten his return, she'd have no problem sending a lot more. Let me show you what these scammers tried to pass off. At first glance, it looks legit. The first problem is that the bank routing numbers are for a bank in North Carolina, not New York. Oops. They did get the Caltex logo correct. Score 1 point for the scammers. And as you can see, they seem to have gotten the Caltex address correct. Oh wait, this Caltex, the one located on Joy Road in Syracuse, New York, makes environmentally safe cleaning and restoration chemicals. And the biggest tell of them all, they have a different logo than the Caltex division of Chevron. I showed everything to Grace, who ran it by Charles, And of course, it was the result of someone else's negligence. But Grace should hold on to that check because he would be home soon and they would cash it then. So Charles claimed the check was good. And the point that I repeatedly made to Grace was that if that check was good and he has a $500,000 receivable just sitting there, you would think that such a resourceful guy like Charles would be able to get the company to reroute the funds to him immediately. This would let Grace get paid back and his debts to the government get settled so he could get himself on the next plane out of there. But what do I know? The computer. It's important to know that at one point in July of 2024, Charles asked Grace to install AnyDesk on her computer. And AnyDesk is a remote access control so that someone can control your computer anywhere in the world. They can also watch your keystrokes, your accounts, all your private information. Now, Grace isn't especially computer literate, so she wasn't able to get the AnyDesk set up for them. But if they had gotten her to give access to them for her computer, they could have cleaned her out without going through all these stories. I think the term to describe the next tactic is unmitigated gall. I want to get back to the court document for a moment. An official letter, High Court of South Africa, Cape Town, complete with case numbers, legal language, and an order for Charles Gary to pay his half of $65,000 fine, split with Caltex, or he would remain detained indefinitely. I found a roster of contact people for the West Division of the High Court in Cape Town and sent a half dozen emails. After a couple weeks, I got my answer to the question, is this document real? Their answer was unambiguous. The court does not issue letters like this. They post orders. They do not use Google Docs. South Africa uses the rand. They do not denominate fines in US dollars. And they had no record of any matters with a Mr. Charles Gary. Not one element of that document came from a real court. Not the format, not the currency, not the process, not the defendant. The institution being impersonated, the actual High Court of South Africa, confirmed it directly. The document was built in a word processor by someone who had never set foot in a courtroom. Grace asked Charles about all the discrepancies that I found, and his answer was, there are a lot of courts in South Africa. They must have gotten the wrong one. Give me a break. Now, everything I've shown you so far, the fake documents, the fake court, all of it theoretically could have been the work of one scammer working on his own. The next piece of evidence puts that possibility to bed. In episode 2, I showed you the CG Builders website, Charles Gary's make-believe company, the website he sent Grace to prove he was a real businessman. I went back to that website and went over it with a fine-tooth comb, and I found something, a link in the footer that had never been changed. I clicked it, and voila, a whole new world opened up. A clone of the CG Builders website. Instead of Charles Gary in Phoenix, it was Concrete Towers Construction of Los Angeles, run by CEO Paul Fisher. Paul also had a company in the ENR's top 5. He also took over the business from his father. Look at these two websites. CG Builders on the left, Concrete Towers on the right. Word for word, every page, every paragraph, every claim about company values, project experience, industry experience, identical. The only things that changed were the company name, the CEO name, and the photo. Someone built a template, and then they built Grace's version of it. Grace confronted him about it, and of course Charles had an answer. He blamed the web developer, said the guy was lazy. Just slapped the information in there and nobody checked it before it went live. A lazy web developer might slap in some placeholder text. He doesn't invent someone else's father, someone else's company history and word for word by accident. And what CEO doesn't read the section about himself before pushing his own website live? Here's something else worth noting. Charles told Grace that when he got home, he was going to retire and close the business. Just walk away from it. For her. Except his own website says the company is employee-owned. So you can't just close down an employee-owned company. He's only a minority owner. There would be other owners and shareholders, which is what it means to have an employee-owned company. The scammers have no idea what the concepts they pass along mean in the real world. But I wasn't done. I ran a Who Is search on the Concrete Towers construction site. CG Builders on the left, Concrete Towers on the right. Look at the registration dates. Concrete Towers registered January 25th, 2024. CG Builders registered February 19th, 2024. 25 days apart. Now look at this. Charles first contacted Grace December 2023. He met my sister first, then someone built the website. He didn't already have a website. He built one for her after he found her. This is not a lonely scammer typing love letters from an internet cafe. This is production. Back in episode 3, I told you this was an organized criminal enterprise executed at an industrial scale. I showed you the money, an infrastructure built to move it. This is the other half of that infrastructure. Grace wasn't targeted. She was processed. And you can bet that out there in every city in the United States, there's a custom website with a made-up name and a made-up CEO scamming women. And every piece of evidence I've shown you in this series, there's a version of it customized especially for them. This is what we're dealing with. None of this was personal. Grace didn't do anything to invite it. She was simply visible. A person on a dating site like millions of others. The system doesn't need you to make a mistake. It just needs you to be visible. I'm Ken. I'm not a detective. I'm a brother. Everything you just saw, the fake contract, the fake check, the fake court, the cloned website, none of it was enough to change Grace's mind. Not because the evidence wasn't there. Here's what I think was really happening. The evidence had become old news. She wasn't living in the past with that evidence. She was living in the present, and in the present, her feelings were driving. Talking to Charles simply felt that good. We'll get into that, the psychological grip that keeps romance scam victims believing. If you know someone who needs to see this right now, share it. This is Saving Grace, Surviving Evil. I'll see you in episode 5.